City of Melbourne has also recognised that trees and the concept of urban forests can play a vital role in Melbourne's livability.
The City of Melbourne has recently approved an urban forest strategy. This went through Council in 2012 and really forms the basis, along with our open space strategy and total watermark, which is our water strategy, in informing Council's response to the challenges that are coming through from urban heat island, from climate change, and to really add to and ensure that the resilience of the city and the livability of city is there for future generations. This is a legacy time for Council. We've been incredibly fortunate to receive the legacy of decisions from people like Charles La Trobe 150 years ago that set aside open space and planted significant numbers of trees. The time of those landscapes is coming to an end. The millennium drought has really accelerated the decline of many of our older trees. So we're now faced with how do we create the future and what does that look like? And so in a sense what we're looking to do is to create a city that's in a forest rather than a forest in the city. And we say that because we recognise that the green infrastructure and the matrix within that is essential, and the green infrastructure is essential infrastructure just as transport and communications is to ensure that the health and well-being of the community is maintained. Trees are the most important greening element that we've got in a city. If we can double our tree canopy cover, we can decrease urban temperatures by 4 to 5 degrees C. It's the most smartest way to go, and it's the most economically proficient way to go. And the community have an extraordinary relationship with green in all its forms, with trees almost being that symbolic element that everybody can associate with. The City of Melbourne recognises that trees are perhaps the most important element of green infrastructure that we can have in the city. Why is this? Well, trees in essence contribute enormously to the health and well-being of the community and to the livability of the city, and they do it in economic ways, they do it in environmental ways, and they do it in social ways. From an economic perspective, there's a huge amount of research that talks about public perception and action in spaces that are well-treed being much more so than spaces without. The work of Kathleen Wolfe in the US, for example, talks about shopping strips that have trees versus shopping strips that don't have trees. And people that are in the well-treed spaces spend more money, spend more time, and think they get better value out of it. Trees can also cool the city, and so that they will reduce the impact of extreme heats on the functionality of the city. Trees are also incredibly good at interception of rainfall, so they can decrease flood events, they clean the air, they decrease temperatures in buildings that surround them. So from an economic perspective, they reduce resource requirements to go in. They naturally air condition, clean the city, keep it dry, and keep it fresh and healthy. From a personal perspective, the health and well-being of a community is intrinsically tied to the green, what's around it. That biophilic innate response that we have to nature really connects in both our physical, mental, spiritual and intellectual sort of well-being. And so what the Council's done is to recognise that trees, as the most important greening element, are going to be beneficial across the board in many, many ways. What we're doing is, in a sense, taking the knowledge that green is good through a myriad of research and taking that and translating it into outcomes on the ground. Our relationship with the community and through our tree planting programs and through our citizen forester programs is going to the heart of reconnecting people with nature, with trees at the heart of that process. The other component of our work is ensuring that these trees are resilient and that they have plenty of water. Without adequate supplies, regular supplies, continuous supplies of water, we can't have the environmental service benefit out of the green infrastructure that we really need. A couple of really good examples of how City of Melbourne's gone about responding to that challenge is to create stormwater harvesting systems, and here you can see one in Fitzroy Gardens and also another in Darling Street. So what we're doing is capturing the water, cleaning it, storing it for reuse. What it does, it takes us off the reliance of the potable water system and creates a space where we're using fit for purpose water. We have ample rainfall throughout the year in Melbourne. What we need to be able to do is to grab that water and use it in the locations that we need it. For the City of Melbourne, in addition to recognise the environmental service provision that our green infrastructure makes in cooling the city, ameliorating the extremes of weather, we recognise that in a sense, at the heart of it, we need to connect the community to nature. And as we look at all of our spaces, whether it's a roadway or a park, we start to look at what further potential's in there. What are the multiple benefits that we can get out of these locations? In Fitzroy Gardens, for example, where we've put our stormwater harvesting system, we have a 5 megalitre tank underground in part of what was the overall depot within the garden. So we've reduced the footprint of the depot by 50% and then freed up space for not only the stormwater harvesting but for a new garden and interpretation centre. And as you can see, we've created a space and further space for people that interprets what's happening below ground around the story of water. So we have a very strong educative component within the way we approach doing what we do. Another really good example of connecting into nature has been some of the work that we've done in Birrong Ma. We have created on the upper terrace a new water harvesting system there, but we've also taken the opportunity on one of the embankments next to the Exhibition Street extension to create a wildflower meadow. In essence, it's just an annual planting, but creating the wildflower meadow has generated enormous interest throughout the community, and in a sense, I think part of this is because of that innate to connect to nature that we're trying to touch, and the wildness of this landscape in a very grey built urban environment has really touched a lot of people and connected into that important space where we just want to be with nature. Over the last 4 years, the City of Melbourne's been having a rather extraordinary conversation with the community and with key stakeholders about what the future looks like. We've been going out and trying to get a handle of the values that people hold for the character of their suburban areas and for the look and feel, if you like, of what that urban forest is going to be in the future. We've set up some incredibly good high-level principles, things such as improving soil moisture, improving the health of vegetation, doubling the tree canopy cover. And that, at that principle level, has enabled us now to go into another layer, which is where we're talking about what happens in particular streets. Here's where we start to have some really engaging conversations with people about their desires. Do they like evergreen? Do they like deciduous? Do they like natives? Do they like flowers? But at the heart of our conversation, what we've been really saying is that it doesn't matter where a tree comes from, it really matters whether the tree will survive into the future and what its environmental provision will be. So we need to have trees that are going to cope with the extremes of weather in the future, that are going to filter the air, that are going to give us really good shade. And the diversity across our population is fundamentally important. We're aware that climate change, globalisation is bringing a lot of pest and disease issues closer to home. One of the best aspects of a resilient forest is to be diverse and to not be dominated by one monoculture. In Melbourne, we've got some challenges. 75% of the trees in the CBD are London planes. We need to move away from that reliance on one species because it doesn't give us resilience. So in essence, whilst we have a lot of different views, tastes, what's important is I think the forest can accommodate all of those views. We don't need to be disabled by an argument about whether it's native, exotic, because that, in a sense, isn't important. What's important is that we have a healthy, resilient forest in the future, and I'm sure that we'll have one that's large enough to accommodate the views of all of the community.